They are innovators, game changers, people pushing themselves, moving us all forward. They are the next scientists, musicians, poets, the next makers, dreamers, teachers, and geniuses. They are the next list.
I think the main mission of what we're trying to do in our lab is to drag psychology kicking and screaming into the 21st century. We're sort of like the unique alliance of Hollywood, the military, and academia.
He's a wizard of the virtual world.
So we have people from neuropsychology, from sociology, from the military background. We bring that together with Hollywood storytelling, the games technology.
A clinical psychologist on the cutting edge.
He's always coming up with new ideas and motivating his colleagues to get involved, get engaged, and push the needle forward.
And anything but your average lab geek.
Skip Rizzo is a very creative hippie, if you would.
He's also a key combatant in the U.S. military's battle against post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD.
It's not unique to combat, but for veterans, what it really has become is one of the signature wounds of Iraq and Afghanistan.
Skip Rizzo. He first grabbed headlines back in 2006 with his virtual reality PTSD therapy for vets. Today, he's getting in front of the problem with Strive, a research project designed to teach recruits to cope with combat stress before their boots ever hit the battlefield. My colleague Chris Lawrence got a first look.
You know, I think that the military does a pretty good job in preparing people in advance for physically challenging events, for how to operate in a squad, all the tactics of war.
Each one of these recruits has to be a basically trained Marine. We have to give our brothers and sisters in the fleet who are going to be in charge of these Marines a finished product.
I want to prepare people to deal with stress better, and if that doesn't work out, to help them to fight through the challenges in the aftermath of stress. Hi, I'm Skip Rizzo, clinical psychologist at the University of Southern California Institute for Creative Technologies. Anybody that goes to war is going to be changed. It's just a reality. On the other hand, PTSD is a significant challenge. And it's not about being weak. It's about having an experience of stress that really has a neurological impact.
We've seen now potentially hundreds of thousands of veterans who may be returning from Iraq or Afghanistan with post-traumatic stress disorder. Conservative estimates say 1 in 5 folks coming home.
The whole virtual Iraq-Afghanistan exposure therapy system is a set of scenarios like villages, Afghan villages, Iraqi villages, city environments that resemble Middle Eastern contexts. And we can pop a user into any of these environments that sort of match what their experience was.
And the idea is that you need to go over and over what happened to you as if it's happening again. I'm hurt! And in a safe environment, so that you learn and your brain learns, if you will, that you're no longer experiencing the traumatic event.
How did you first think, wait a minute, I'm doing all of this after they come home. What can I do before?
It was sort of a logical process where we had to study the process, we had to interact with a lot of patients, and we had to see that pain. You know, you think to yourself, well, why don't we do a better job on the front end so we can put ourselves out of a job on the back end?
Strive is an important research project for us to determine how we can conduct our training in the military to better prepare our people for the stresses of combat.
What we're going to do here is we're going to set up some psychophysiological recording, which is from this system here. What we're trying to do with Strive is the next level where we're actually trying to embed a user into a story, an interactive narrative.
It's important that we have an interactive experience.
Hey, little man. That's my boy right there.
Our participants are really part of this world. They're part of a mission that they need to fulfill.
So instead of sitting on the couch and watching Band of Brothers, they're wearing a headset and they're in the story, and then things happen that are challenging.
Go on.
When we look at the stress moments that need to appear in these episodes, we first brainstorm a variety of ideas of things we can get in there. What can actually happen in Iraq and Afghanistan has happened. So once we have that high-level overview, we can work with our art group to define all the visual assets, we can work with our voice actors to record their lines, and we can work with our motion capture state next door to capture all the animations that these characters need to have.
And we bring in a virtual character, a mentor character that pops up periodically and guides the user through the events, the strategies, and the way to put it all together. So a challenging event, seeing a child die, how do you get over that? By going through these kinds of events in advance, we're preparing folks for what they may face and giving them tactics for better dealing with it.
The Army research community has funded a portion of this. The Office of Naval Research and the Marine Corps has funded a portion of this.
I certainly think that anything we can do as a government, as a military, to prepare our young men and women for what they might see while deployed is money well spent.
And on the way back, there was an IED attack. Our vehicle ran over an IED.
Skip Rizzo began his battle against PTSD with a post-combat therapy called Virtual Iraq. I experienced it firsthand back in 2006, and I can tell you it's an intense ride. It's what's helped thousands of vets overcome their traumas and move on with their lives.
When you hear some of the stories that people tell about their experiences in Iraq and Afghanistan, the variety of things that affect people are unimaginable.
First time I came under fire, it was in 2006, going up and down a road called MSR Tampa in Iraq. Your first reaction isn't really feelings, it's instinct, and you just respond off instinct.
Okay, so you'll be putting on this head-mounted display.
Positive. Oh, wow.
Just turned on the base shaper.
Yeah. That feels a lot more real.
On the convoy that I was injured on, I wasn't with my unit. I was detached to do a separate mission to escort a specific general. And our mission was to play security team. And on the way back, there was an IED attack. Our vehicle ran over an IED. So the vehicle exploded.
We really try to draw on the feedback we get from patients going through this and the stories that they tell to make it a richer experience.
You couldn't tell it was a truck anymore. It was just like a big ball of metal. Never met the person that saved my life. I didn't remember his name. And I didn't know the soldier that was lost as well. I just remember waking up in Germany.
I think the key here is diversity. To be able to have a variety of contexts that can address the wide range of experiences that people come back that they say are the things they remember and that, haunt them.
So when I woke up days later, couldn't feel my legs, couldn't move my head left or right, so I didn't know if I was quadriplegic, paraplegic. I didn't know what was going on until the nurse explained it to me. I was having a hard time sleeping. I was having a lot of nightmares and just memories and flashes. So they diagnosed me with post-traumatic stress. I didn't have a fortitude to seek help. I didn't seek help either. I was told I had to seek help.
So what we do is we have the person go over their memory as if it were happening again, but they're in a safe environment.
So I did that with therapists. I'd have to talk myself through the situation over and over and over again to lower my anxiety level, to lower my adrenaline levels.
The challenge is with traditional exposure, if you can't engage a person using exclusive imagination, then you don't see the treatment effect because they're so walled off from their emotions. Let me pop you into a city environment or jump into a market area.
Yeah, I can see you've got the fruit, vegetable stands, all the trash in the street, which is pretty realistic.
Where virtual reality comes in is it basically delivers the context for your memory and the imagery, the sights, the sounds, the smells of being in Iraq or Afghanistan.
Like, I hear all these layers of sound. I hear the helicopter, I hear the call to prayer.
I really think that the visuals set sort of a stage or a context, but the sound can really serve to drive emotion.
This is vehicle 3. We just got hit.
And to anybody watching, they're gonna say, oh, that just looks like a video game. But when you put the goggles on, it really brings you back into the same scenario that you're working through.
We can put on ambient city sounds now, add the sound of wind, and of course we can blow stuff up.
I mean, it was pretty intense. I mean, even when some of the bombs were going off, it wasn't just hearing them in the distance. Like I could feel the vibrations of those explosions.
The body experience is a key element of this.
You smell a smell or you hear a sound, hear a prayer call. It's tapping into your memory and helping you recall it and maybe overcome the avoidance that seems to be part of PTSD.
The therapy has been effective. I was never a fan of prolonged exposure and things of that nature because it's just not a comfortable feeling.
At its core, exposure therapy has to induce some level of anxiety so that you're processing hard memories.
But it did help out a lot because I later kind of noticed that the nightmares were coming a lot less frequently, the sleep issues was coming a lot less frequently, and the anxiety when these nightmares happen was coming a lot less frequently.
There are currently 55 sites that have the original system. You know, I can't underscore enough that the technology doesn't fix anybody. It's a tool in the hands of a well-trained clinician.
There have been multiple studies done with Marines, Navy personnel, and Army and returning from active duty showing that it's effective. People get better. They get better in a relatively short period of time.
Absolutely, I would recommend this therapy to all different types of soldiers, police officers, firemen.
We were funded to rebuild everything on the latest software, and I expect that in the next year, we'll see a significant growth in the use of the technology. Aside from that, we have data to show that this is a safe and effective approach to treating PTSD. You know, I don't know if you've ever been to a rugby party, but you know, you want to talk about letting off steam, that is the ultimate place to do it. You know, I don't know if you've ever been to a rugby party, but you know, you want to talk about letting off steam, that is the ultimate place to do it. The beauty of rugby is not only the gameplay and the sport of it, but there's a bond that grows from rugby players among each other. It's like maybe the closest you can come to combat, but still be safe.
I've got to ask you, and I only ask you this because I'm in the Pentagon every day. You're not what I pictured when I think military.
I think I'm sort of like the token wild-eyed guy that, you know, they wouldn't want to, you know, have in their squad, but they kind of like maybe having me around to come up with some new ideas.
Well, I'm a veteran myself, so Skip really puts a veteran at ease. Skip is not a suitor. He's a down-to-earth kind of guy, and I'll tell you, that's what veterans like.
I was a child of the 60s, so to speak, and at that time, you know, it was a different era with the Vietnam War and everything, and I missed out on being in the military. That was the last thing in the world I wanted to do. When I started to see some of the problems that were coming from, you know, out of Iraq and Afghanistan, I felt, well, this is a way for me to sort of do my part in some way. As a kid, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but it wasn't until I went to college and my first day of college was psychology, and instantly it was like, oh man, this is it.
Like I know you've got to have that clinical scientific mind for the processes, but so much of this is creative. Where do you get your inspiration from?
I grew up listening to progressive rock, you know, expansive symphonies of sounds that created mind movies. And so I think I always had an imagination that this work gives me opportunity to pull on that imagination and work out my frustrated artist side and frustrated filmmaker side and still keep my clinical side.
So is somewhere in there is a rock star, director, waiting to get out?
Lead guitarist in Pink Floyd, yeah. Pretty much, yeah. but I'm also inspired. I mean, I think a lot has to do with people you hang out with. We have a mix of people on our team, you know, that are computer scientists, artists, graphic designers, psychologists. You know, it's the best job in the world. We get to go in and play with all these toys and build things that have a really, I think, a really good human purpose.
Well, we work at a research institute, so I don't want to say too much, but the typical researcher would have, you know, glasses, a lab coat perhaps, and somewhat of a nerdy outlook. But here's this person who's coming on this Harley Davidson, and his favorite pastime is seeing how much beer he can clock away with our colleagues.
I know these guys got a great look at, you know, sort of where you operate. What's with the skulls? Come on.
Well, the skull is the home of the brain. And I worked for many years in brain injury, so I sort of adopted the skull because I could make the excuse that it is sort of a scientific motif or a mascot, but I also like skulls because they're cool. You know, it's an artistic entity, you know, and it's so cool because that's where your brain lives.
Private First Class, Daquan Graham, Chicago.
Corporal Gallegos, Oxnard, California.
Private Daniel Hanusek, Omaha, Nebraska.
You've got a large population that deserves our best attention. I think that there's no more higher purpose right now than to take care of the folks that put themselves in harm's way, protect our freedoms.
And what is totally unprecedented is the redeployment pace. More than 500,000 folks have done more than one tour. So that's a tremendous emotional and physical burden we've put on our folks that's totally unprecedented.
Yes, I still have sleep issues. I still have, from the TBI, migraines. I still have nights or weeks at a time where I can go without sleeping. Still situations where I've lost some people over there that I don't talk about now. I don't talk about, but it just, you're never going to get that back. You're never going to get them back, and those memories aren't ever going to go away.
We're acknowledging that people are always going to have some effect. We just want them to be able to be better at making that transition back to civilized society and not carrying around that pain of war for the rest of their life, messing up the only life they have.
A lot of vets don't want to go get care. They're saying, you know what, I'm tough, I can handle it, I'm macho, I learned in the military that I can take care of myself.
There's this stigma for seeking help medically for, I would say anything, but if it's something physical, people can understand it. But if you say I'm having some emotional issues to your sergeant or to your commander, they kind of don't want to hear that.
But it's really become not only the right thing to do for you, but it's kind of a tactical necessity. You don't want to send somebody back into combat who's got post-traumatic stress disorder any more than you want to send somebody with a pulled hamstring back on the football field.
That's a big problem in some regards. We still have a culture within the military that admitting need help is like admitting weakness. So we're trying in the military to get past that with the idea that it's okay to ask for help. It's going to be a generational shift. I think the military is really putting a serious effort into normalizing the act of asking for help.
And, not surprisingly, this is a younger generation. When given the choice, many soldiers and Marines will say that they would prefer the virtual reality form of the exposure therapy. Why? Well, it's a gaming generation. Maybe it doesn't feel like so much like therapy.
It hits home when it's on your own base and people you know actually hung out with them.
One of the big areas at ICT is the development of virtual humans. You know, graphic characters that have some level of artificial intelligence can understand what you're saying and that you can interact with.
They can be mentors, or they can be virtual actors that people can train negotiations with, or they can train intake conversations with. And all these technologies combined with the research in the mental health area is opening up a way to a lot of different possibilities.
You know, we get to see real change. We get to see people, you know, that are initially, you know, bound up and tight and almost afraid to even go into a virtual world to, you know, confront and process the challenging memories. And then over a few sessions, you start to see them come out of that a little bit And that's really uplifting, and it's also a heck of a lot of fun. The biggest challenge I face in all this is if we see somebody make a gain in therapy and they're still in active duty, there's a chance that they're going to get deployed again. So I'm anxious about, are we fixing them up in a way that is making them stronger so that they're more resilient when they go back, or are we putting them at risk again? That's one of the questions that keep me up at night.
This is going to continue. This is a long war, and we need to do everything we can to prepare our people for the threats that we face.
I think war is still going to suck, no matter how far into the future you look. There's always going to be pain and tragedy and human wreckage. We're struggling now to think about ways that we can prevent some of that by using the best in technology to prepare people more effectively.
I wish him all the best. I know everybody in the military wishes him all the best, and I hope all Americans wish him the best. You got to root for this guy, and you got to hope that what he's doing works, and it'll be better for everybody.
Skip Rizzo is doing more than helping servicemen and women fight their way back from post-traumatic stress. He's saving lives by teaching our troops to handle the horrors of war before they hit the battlefield. And that's what earns him a spot on the next list. I'm Dr. Sanjay Gupta. Hope to see you back here next Sunday.